Hey everybody, it's Doug Green and I'm the publisher of Technology Reseller News, and I'm very pleased to have with me today Aaron Case of Travelers Financial Solutions. Aaron, thank you for joining me today.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So we get to do something different today. We will be talking about AI, and we'll be talking about a lot of other big telecoms issues, a lot of data issues and so on. But we're going to be talking about the other part of the money, credit, finance, the resource that you need to make it happen. Whatever you're doing in AI and whatever you're doing in many other things, the Travelers Financial Solutions has products and services available. So let's dive right into that. Aaron, tell me a little bit about TFS.
Perfect. Yeah, TFS is a part of the Travelers Group, which has been around in Canada and the US for over 40 years. Travelers Financial Solutions specifically builds and operates captive finance solutions for any OEM, retailer, major dealer of various asset classes, from transportation, heavy equipment, technology, medical, you name it. And generally, our approach is a white label solution where we allow the customer to maintain face and brand, and we operate behind the scenes.
Yeah, let me understand a little bit better about these terms you're using. What do we mean by white label when it comes to finance?
Yeah, so white label, if you happen to be Doug Green's technology seller of products, then you can be Doug Green's finance co. So behind the scenes, we will operate everything. We'll handle all the work for you, but we allow the retailers, dealers, OEMs to maintain customer contact, maintain the brand, really be the face of the organization.
And that's when you said captive market. That's basically what it is. Is I've got people in front of me. They're wanting to buy something, and I am able to say, "Hey, we've got financing, and it's our finance company."
Exactly.
All right. And staying with this for a second, I take it that part of the advantage of doing it this way is that it's not like going to a local credit union or bank. You already understand what we might be talking about in terms of servers or cloud or data.
Exactly. And if we don't understand it, then what we'll do is partner with you to learn your business, learn exactly what your customer base wants. And so we'll tailor a solution specifically to the retailer versus going to your local bank where you might have one individual that covers a very wide swath of different customer types. They're not going to be able to spend that time investing and learning your business.
Now, do you offer a range of services?
We do. We do. And so our range goes from, we'll joint venture with a very large manufacturer, a very large dealer group, where we'll hire people, we'll train people, we'll manage the end-to-end process and have a fully dedicated staff to your program, all the way down to, if you're a very small retailer, we have a large group of people that can handle those applications on your behalf. So in terms of services, there's rev share agreements, there's joint ventures. We can service your payments on your behalf if you want to. We can syndicate certain volumes out. It really depends on the need of the customer.
And again, as opposed to other ways that someone might go out and get financing, do you have certain advantages for the reseller down the road? Now that the loan is operating, now that everything's happening, even the operation of it, the background that you have in technology, does that create some benefit?
Absolutely. I think one of our benefits is we have a very large call center of salespeople that will actively engage your customers. We'll check in on those customers to see how the equipment is working out, if they have any future needs. So one of our largest benefits is we can actually assist building a pipeline of sales by keeping in contact with those finance customers to see if they have a future acquisition in place. And so we like to really, we like to share in the spoils with our partners in terms of the more that you sell, the more that we can finance. And so we're very aligned with our partners in growing.
So even as you're basically talking to the customer, you're actually identifying new opportunities with that customer. Maybe the reseller doesn't know.
Exactly. In certain programs, up to 50% of our business comes with that strategy.
Well, that's really interesting. So, I guess we've been talking about this. Compare it a little bit more to, because there's lots of different ways we can go. I imagine the borrower often might say, "Oh, I've got my own finance. We have someone that I always like to go to."
Yeah, I mean, most people will have some idea of how they're going to pay for a certain asset when purchasing it. That's the prudent thing to do. If we were to create a finance product for a technology reseller, what we generally will do is find out who are the best finance companies in that space. We partner with a number of different companies as well as provide our own capital. So we'll provide a competitive quote. And then on the inherent benefits is if that customer wants to trade up later on, we can make a seamless transition of moving from a certain power of a chip to another, or if you need to add on to that loan by way of more servers, we can really work with the customer versus a traditional bank is a bit more of a one and done relationship where you finance that asset, it sits on their books. If you want to make any changes, you're essentially submitting a brand new deal to that bank.
So this is how you guys contrast as the loan gets serviced. You're generating leads, you're generating data and information. Anything else?
I mean, data and information is how we run our business. And so the more we understand about a customer, the more we can help that customer grow. And so if that customer is loving the technology that they purchase, we'll always try and get them into what is your next purchase? What else can we do for you?
You also sometimes surface things the other way. Not everything always works so well. Do you sometimes, alert a reseller to maybe some issues?
Absolutely. I mean, there's certain instances where a customer might get over their skis. Maybe they purchase too much equipment up front and they don't need it all. Because we're an independent finance company. We're not a bank. We're not in the business of wanting to go and foreclose on customers immediately. We're going to work with them to see, let's partner with the technology reseller. If we can sell those assets to another customer, we might be able to assign the loan to another customer if someone's looking for, an aftermarket chip and they're willing to make up the rest of the payments. And so on our side, I would call it's very customer centric and very full service versus a one and done retail offering.
And does that, again, also, business is business, right? So everyone's had the experience of being involved with another business which is having difficulty. Do you bring special skills to that situation too?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the severity of the situation the customer happens to be in. And so if the customer is just having trouble making their payments and it doesn't sound like that equipment's for them, it's easy to be friendly and it's easy to help them work out of that transaction. Not all deals pay perfectly and not all deals always pay to the end of the term. I think that's just the nature of the lending business. But definitely, I think by partnering with technology resellers, the good thing is any of those customers who don't end up paying us is another pipeline of equipment coming back to the reseller for them to put back to market. So I call it a closed loop system from purchase to repossession back to the reseller.
Well, let's talk about this at the very beginning. Is there actually an onboarding process?
Absolutely. Our onboarding process, depending on the size of the OEM, of the reseller, of the dealer, can be anywhere from 30 days to as long as 6 months. And so, as I mentioned previously, we really like to get to know our customers. We want to know what your go-to-market strategy is, how you price your products, what your sales volumes look like, how are your salespeople compensated, how do your salespeople go to the individual customer. And so once we learn all that, we'll tailor a solution that fits within your ecosystem. And so rather than fitting a square peg through a round hole, we like to embed our product seamlessly into the point of sale.
Aaron, is it your experience, selling technology is a very complex thing sometimes, and it's easy to let things sit on the table. Is it your experience that people might be underutilizing your companies like your organization specifically in the process of sales, that they're just not seeing an opportunity that might be there?
100%. I strongly believe the earlier you involve finance in the sales process, the more successful you're going to be. As a salesperson of any asset, you don't know how that person's going to pay for that. And so it's better to handle that objection in minute one versus finding out 30, 60, 90 days later that the person doesn't have the funds and then you're scrambling afterwards. And so I think there's a great opportunity to upsell the customer into something either more expensive, better suited, being more comfortable to purchase more from you as seller of technology. It's also a better customer journey where you ask the right questions up front and it's smooth all the way through versus, like I said, getting to the 11th hour and finding out you've got a hiccup to get over. And the salesperson has spent all this time, all this effort in trying to close a deal, and you might not have a deal anymore. So I'm a strong believer in using finance as an opportunity to sell more.
Let's stay there for a second, because it sounds like you're almost saying that this is parallel to what we see in the consumer markets a lot, that maybe I'm better off. I'm with Aaron. Let's find out, Aaron, what we're talking about. Let's find out what your credit capacity is. And now we can unknowingly design the proper solution that you can actually afford.
Absolutely. I think it's very similar to the car business. Is if you've got a certain monthly payment in mind, that's going to drive the type of car you can purchase on a lot. I think most people are very familiar with mortgage and auto finance. And so, if you can't afford a Ferrari, generally you don't spend much time at the Ferrari dealership. The difference being, I think, in the commercial world, the technology world, is not everybody understands what the monthly payments would look like on certain pieces of technology. So many people, they might be able to actually afford a lot more than they originally thought. They just haven't thought about it before. So I think involving us early in the process, it opens the eyes of the commercial buyer into, what can I afford as a business? What's the prudent decision to make? It's just that next step, I think. Yeah.
Literally earlier today, I did a couple of podcasts, and people are starting to describe data as the new gold mine. Data as the place that the money is, not the bank. It's data. It's the data. It's the data farm. It's the data bank, and so on. You guys are deeply understanding our industry. You actually do this every day. What do you see in terms of financing AI infrastructure and assisting dealers with that?
Yeah, we've definitely seen an uptick in the last 6 to 12 months in terms of AI related businesses looking to finance anything from your NVIDIA chips to beyond. And I think what's different about what we do is, if you're going to purchase a NVIDIA chip for $35,000, $50,000, $60,000, that's a large purchase. But along with that customer is going to require likely some additional servers. They're going to require the racking for the servers. They might need lighting in the server room. They might need a cooling unit. And so where we come in is we're quite asset agnostic. And so we would take that NVIDIA chip, but we'll also finance every adjacent asset next to it in order for you to run your business. And so it's not just about the point of sale of the technology reseller. We can actually wrap around that whole business. And again, we'll provide capital so that person can take that chip and actually start to turn it into revenue.
And here's where the money and also the expertise comes in, right? That the local bank, or even a large, national bank, may not really understand the nexus between the revenue that potentially might come out of an very expensive AI product, and also how to finance it.
100% agree. I think, AI is a scary word to a lot of people. And if you walk into the bank and start talking about AI and what computing power a certain chip is and needing certain server requirements to process, you're likely going to lose that person in the first 30 seconds, and you might not be overly successful. Where if you've got a partner that understands your business, has taken the time to know what your customers want, I think your odds of selling more are quite high.
I'm almost wondering if I should ask this, that do you ever encounter customers that have shopped around and then they find you and they go, the last guy asked me how many pickup trucks we have in terms of collateral, and we're buying an AI chip?
Yeah, it's, lending is all about loan to value for most people. And I think if you don't understand the industry, that's going to be the first question the bank's going to ask you, or they're going to want to, maybe it's tie up your principal residence, get additional collateral in the business. Right. You're going to be looking at more personal guarantees. They're just trying to wrap their arms as far around you as they can, because they don't put the value in the technology that you're purchasing just because they don't understand it.
And you may have surfaced another issue for a reseller to consider, that, yeah, sure, my customer might be able to get the financing, but they're getting a dumb loan. It's secured with a person's house, or the wrong assets, or the wrong match of money, and so on.
Exactly. It's really a loan against your person versus a loan putting the value in the technology you're purchasing, which could be structured very differently. And I think if your business does well, you won't have an issue there, but not all businesses do perform. And if you've got
Right.
your personal residence and personal guarantees and you're very tied up, um, you know, in that transaction, if things don't go well, you're putting your livelihood at risk versus just losing your chip is a lot different than losing your house.
So, Aaron, as we close up our podcast, earlier in our podcast today, you were talking about the sales cycle. And I'm wondering whether it's a good idea for the salesperson, for the sales team, to engage you guys really early to understand how to basically approach the customer, at what scale, and so on.
Absolutely. I find that the earlier that we're involved in the process, generally the better outcome from the customer. And so we have programs where we'll co-sell to a customer, where we can have a finance rep on the line at the same time when they're speaking with the customer. We can submit an application early to get a pre-approval in place for that customer, so the sales rep knows how much they would be approved for and what products they'd be allowed to purchase at the very onset of the quoting stage. Again, versus waiting until you've invoiced the transaction and then the customer's scrambling to make a payment.
So, a big tip to everyone: get involved early, not late. Don't do it at the end of the day.
You got it.
All right. Well, Aaron, I hope we have some further conversations about this. This is something we need to report on much more. The area of credit, finance, and AI, very important. Where can we learn more?
Yeah, I encourage anyone, if you want to learn more, tfsfinancial.com. Fill out the web form there or give us a call, and we'd be happy to have any of our people jump on a call or fly out to meet you wherever you are and learn more about your business and how we can build a product that'll help you sell more.
Tailor-made solutions, everybody. Give them a call. Take a look. Aaron, thank you very much indeed for joining me today.
No, thank you so much. Have a great day.